Hello everyone, I am Ron and I am the game design instructor for the Academy of Entertainment Arts over at Dixie Hollins High School. If you are one of my students, it's Mr. Flowers to you, and welcome to this video tutorial. Hey guys, in the last tutorial we went over how to set up the bow and arrow in our game and of course fire the arrows. In this video I want to show you how to do a final cleanup step whenever you have a projectile item in your game. Whenever you're firing like a bullet or an arrow or something of that effect that leaves the screen, you want to make sure that you are deleting it from the game. Otherwise, you'll end up eating up all of your memory. So I'm going to go ahead and show you exactly what I'm talking about. Let's go over to our object game here. I'm going to go to our draw GUI. And inside of our draw GUI, I'm just going to make a new draw event here, or draw text. So draw text 10, and then our last one was at 48, so I'll do this one at 60, so it's another 12 down. And I'm going to have this be instances. So every object in your game is considered an instance as far as GameMaker is concerned. So we're going to report to the screen how many active instances there are in the current level. So string, this is going to be instance count. And GameMaker, of course, has this wonderful variable called instance count, which will return the number of active instances in your game. And if you, middle mouse click over instance count, it'll tell you, it says with this read-only variable, you can get a count of all active instances that are in your room. Now, it's a read-only variable. That means you cannot write to it, you cannot add anything to it, you can't subtract to it, you can't modify the variable anyway. But you can get the value that's currently there. So, go back to our game object here. And with this here, we can enter the game. Alright, and you can see, of course, here I'm in my room. Up here I have my instance count. I currently have 85 instances. And pretty much everything in the room is an instance. So every one of these wall tiles is an instance. The door here is an instance. The object hidden behind the door that lets me transfer between rooms is an instance. The player is an instance. All of these little items that I can pick up, these are instances. And of course my little bouncing betties, these are also instances that are currently in the room. And if I pick up these items, my instance count will drop. So if I grab this sword, for example, boop, I dropped to 84, 83, 82, 81, 80. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my bow, and you'll see that when I equip my bow, I'll actually obtain an instance because my bow is now created. And there's my arrow. And as I fire, you'll see that the instance count goes up. And if I keep firing, for every arrow that I spawn, I've increased the number of instances that are alive and active inside of my room. And if you have a large number of arrows, and let's say after a couple of hundred of them, or maybe even 1,000 arrows, you're going to start noticing the game slowing down and becoming very sluggish, because those things are flying off into infinite space where GameMaker has to keep track of every single one of those. And if you're not using them, then you're just wasting memory. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that everything that leaves the screen is being destroyed. So I'm going to go ahead and close this, and I'm going to jump into my object arrow. And all I want to do in here is set it up so that it deletes itself whenever it leaves the screen. Right here is my movement code. I'm going to wrap this inside of the an if statement here. It's going to say if object game.state is in game, and then we'll do the movement code. This way we can pause the arrows in the event that we have to do something in the game. And I'll just say on top of this pause arrows. Then above that, you can actually do this above or below the movement code. Generally the movement code is the last thing that your object needs to read. So I usually just put that at the bottom. So I'm going to have this one called, I'll say check bounds. And then if it's outside the boundary, we're just going to delete it. So this is pretty simple, just an if statement. So if, since I can only shoot an arrow left and right, I don't have to worry about my y value. So I'm going to have my x value of the arrow. If it is less than my screen, which is 0. So my screen ends at 0 way over here. So if it's less than 0, or if my X position of my arrow is greater than my screen width, and my screen width down here is 1024, you can see that there. I can just type that in, 1024. GameMaker also has a built-in variable called room width. So if you have a room width that is a different size, you can type in room width, and you can get that as a return value. That way you don't have to keep finding this number. That was not like a magic number somewhere. It'll update automatically. If you're working with cameras, let's say like I have this camera here, and if I have my cameras turned on, I could write to the camera's position, and I'll show you how to do that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and just set this up, just make sure it's going to work. So I'll say 1024. And then all I want to do is, if it's outside of either of these boundaries, we're going to say instance destroy. So now if I run this, I'm going to give my players some more arrows just so I can play around with this. Arrow count, 150. That's going to be awesome. Alright, so let's grab my bow. And as you see, I'm shooting arrows, and that instance count goes up. And as soon as the arrow leaves the wall there, it drops down. So it's at 85, arrow leaves, 84. And over here, if I fire, it's at 85, leaves at 84. So I never have to worry about these things trailing off into infinite space any longer and just eating up the RAM on my computer. Okay, so that's all I really wanted to cover for that. However, I'm going to show you how to do it if you need like a camera setup or whatnot. So inside my room here, I will go ahead and set up my camera. So viewports and cameras, I will enable viewports, clear viewports, and then of course my first viewport, make that visible. And I'll show you that currently it doesn't update to my viewport, so that the arrow can of course leave my viewport, which is fine. Like you can most certainly have it work that way. That way things that are further off your screen, we'll have to actually adjust the inventory screen. The inventory screen is not drawn in the GUI, which is why it's moving on me. Let's say like I shoot, and you can see that the arrow can leave my viewport here, but it doesn't delete until it gets outside the wall there. And if that's fine for you, you are welcome to stop here. If you are a little bit picky and you really want the arrow to stop at the edge of the viewport, then continue on. So to stop it at the edge of the viewport, go up to your arrow. We're going to create a couple of variables here. I'm just going to call this get camera position, and that's going to be var. I'll say cam, I'll say left, and that's going to be equal to my object camera dot x minus object camera width divided by 2, and then var cam right, that'll be object camera dot x plus object camera dot width divided by 2. So once I get my camera values, I can just sub those in right here. I can have this be my x value is less than my cam left, and then my x value greater than my cam right, and this should give me the same result, except now it'll be deleting outside of the camera view instead of the room view. Let's go ahead and grab that. Whoops. Let's test that. And that works. So as soon as it leaves and gets on the edge of this, it drops down. So that's working in my camera view, and if I come over here and I shoot it works on that edge of the camera view as well. So that's how you can set it up so that the arrows delete either inside the room view or inside of your camera view. So I'm going to call the video here. Hopefully this has been educational for you and you won't be using up your RAM by not cleaning up your arrows. And I'll see you guys in the next video.